Sisters, greetings, greetings, greetings. I hope everybody is doing well. I am trying to get a little setup here going. Thank all of you all for coming inside of the chat room. Tonight, I got to fix my headphones. That's the first thing I got to do. Shout out to everybody coming in into our chat room. Thank all of you all for coming in for class tonight. Looking forward for this class. Won't be a long lesson tonight, but we're going to do something that I think that will be beneficiary, and we call this tonight Bible history, or the Bible confirmed by world history. So we're going to continue from where we left off last night. I thought it was a good point to bring some of this stuff in. You know, I brought in some new headphones, and I hope these are not really my old ones, but I think that they're my new ones, but they're not. They are. So I got a better set that I'm going to actually pull out that I have right here. That's even better. Okay. Because the ones I'm using, they keep coming out of my ear and this and that. So we're going to discredit these and put the nice ones on. Shout out to all of you all that's in the chat room. Brother Tobiah, I haven't seen you in a minute, brother. I hope you're doing well. Haven't seen you in a while. Glad to see you. Very happy to see you, my brother. I am just moving and shifting some things around. Let me tell you all what I was doing tonight. I decided to go play racquetball with our treasurer at Bethel. And he's a younger guy, makes me run, makes me stay in shape. So I decided to go play racquetball tonight. And I had a very good time. I did pretty good. I did better than what I normally do after not playing for a while. And I was very pleased in the way things turned out with that. Just getting my headphones and stuff like that situated. But anyway, it was good tonight. I want to talk about this lesson tonight that we're going to be doing. And again, I apologize for not having everything together. I have two sets of these nice little earplugs, and I put in the wrong one. So I'm okay now, okay, getting that together. And my camera is not really focused. So y'all give me a minute, and I'm going to fix that, right? Put my hand right here and kind of turn it a little bit and get that thing in focus. There we go. Because that'll be me back there. And get my light on here. So my wife has been using my office space area, and she didn't quite set things back up, or I forgot to make sure things were set up, and it wasn't. But nonetheless, we're here. Y'all know how that goes, you know. You get a little space, and before you know it, you moved out. So that being said, I'm just happy to be here with you all. Okay, let's see who's in our chat room. Let's go over there and say hello to who's over there. We have in our chat room that came in tonight, Brother Yason, Brother Brian Johnson, Sister Barbara Betton, and Sister Latoya Moore. First in our chat room tonight. So glad that you all were able to come over. I'm still just getting a little stuff situated here, so y'all still continue to give me a moment. I'm going to get all of that together. And then who else do we have? Veronica. Sister Veronica, and I hope you've been okay. Candace, haven't seen you in a while. Crystal Wells. How you doing, Sister Crystal? Thank you for being here. Israel Coldair. Delia Paget from the Facebook side. Y'all know how we do it. Brother Roderick Whitaker, how you doing? Brother Tobiah, how you doing, my brother? Brother Landon Johnson. Sedaria Halliburton. Sedaria, is this your first time here? let me know. Tobiah, Donna Panquin, Franklin, Grant, all of you all. Thank you for tuning in tonight. And let's get started with this. Brother Mark P. is in the house. One of our moderators. Shout out for Brother Mark P. coming in. I think he's our only moderator in the room, I think. Thank him for coming inside the room tonight. And everybody that's here, let's give everybody a hand of applause. There we go. Yeah, so glad that you're all here with us. Okay, so let's get some other business situated here. Great. It's been a while. That's what it is, Sadari. It's been a while. I want to kind of get some stuff situated there. Okay, so the first thing I got to do is kind of move over to the side. I don't know which side I got to move to because I plan on putting some things on the board, okay? So with that in place, there you go. I got to move to this side. Okay, so I want to show some of the things like I did last night. We went into world history a little bit, and I kind of like covering that aspect. And I want to go into the scriptures again, but I also want to tie in history with paganism tonight. I want to tie both of those in. And I tell you why I think it's important to do that, because we started off with pagan practices last week, and we showed some very good information on Christmas and Easter. And I want to continue that, but I also like what we did last night by kind of bringing in the encyclopedia and showing world history. So I thought tonight, how do I merge both of those lessons together? And I found a way to do it. So that's what we're going to do tonight. We're going to merge both history and paganism together. Somebody might say, Pastor, how you plan on doing that? Well, this is what we're going to do. We're going to go over here, and I need to find that nice little overlay that we had where I think it's right here. There we go. This is the Bible. So this is the King James Version, the book of Daniel. And what I want to do is I want to go back to the story dealing with Belshazzar. So the fifth chapter of Daniel. And what I'm going to do is show you what these individuals were doing and connect it to paganism. So let me kind of get this a little bit out of my way here. Can I do that? Let me get a little bit of this out of my way. How am I going to do that? Y'all give me a minute here, because there's a way to do it and a way to do it. All right, so this is how we're going to do it. Wow, why is that not showing up the way I want it to? Here we go. Okay, so that's what I wanted, custom. Okay, it worked. So let me make it a little bit more smaller and kind of move it over here. There we go. If y'all can still read that, let me know. I don't want to make it too small, but I don't want to make it too big either, okay? Let's see, we do it this way. Okay. If that is okay, if you all can still see the words, somebody give me a thumbs up in the chat room that we can still read that. And I'll wait to get that for a few seconds. Let me know that we could still see these words here. And we're going to start our lesson tonight from Daniel, the 5th chapter. And again, we're going to be mixing history and paganism, those lessons together. Somebody gave me a thumbs up. Thank you very much. So let's do this. Belshazzar, the king made a great feast to 1,000 of his lords. Now, last night we proved to you through world history that the order in which these nations were going to come. Belshazzar the king made a great feast to 1,000 of his lords and drank wine before the thousands. Now, as you all remember, Belshazzar is a descendant of Nebuchadnezzar. How far down, we don't know. Belshazzar, whilst he tasted the wine, commanded to bring the golden and silver vessels which his father Nebuchadnezzar had taken out of the temple which was in Jerusalem, that the king and his princes and his wives and concubines might drink therein. Now, the question is, how did this stuff get there? So let's go over to 2 Chronicles real quick. I think we're going to go over to the 36th chapter, and I think that's where I want to go at. Is it the 36th chapter, 2 Chronicles? Yes. We're going to read verse 5. Jehoiakim was 25 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 11 years in Jerusalem. Now he is over Israel, brothers and sisters. Let's go back and look at this. Then the people took the land. Then the people of the land took Joahaz, the son of Josiah, and made him king in his father's stead in Jerusalem. Jehoahaz was 23 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 3 months in Jerusalem. And the king of Egypt put him down at Jerusalem and condemned the land in 100 talents of silver and a talent of gold. And the king of Egypt made Eliakim his brother king over Judah and Jerusalem, and turned his name to Jehoiakim. So this Jehoiakim's, that's his name, and Necho took Jehoahaz, his brother, and carried him to Egypt. Jehoiakim was 25 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 11 years in Jerusalem. Here's the key part. He did that which was evil in the sight of the Lord his God. That's the God of Israel. Against him came up Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, and bound him in fetters to carry him to Babylon. Nebuchadnezzar also carried of the vessels of the house of the Lord, the God of Israel, to Babylon, and put them in his temple at Babylon. And the rest of the acts of Jehoiakim and his abominations which he did, and that which was found in him, behold, they are written in the books of the kings of Israel and Judah, and Jehoiakim his son reigned in his stead. Now, the reason why I want to put this is I want to show you how the vessels got over there. Let's skip down a little bit. And I think that's important to understand that. Let's go back over here. So Nebuchadnezzar is dead. Belshazzar wanted and commanded people to bring the golden and silver vessels which his father had taken out of the temple, which was in Jerusalem, that the king and his princes and his wives and concubines might drink therein. Now, this is important because this was during a special feast. And that feast was a lot of drinking, a lot of wives and concubines and princesses. They were having a party. So that being said, let's go look at what happens during Saturnalia from the World History Encyclopedia. Okay? So I'm gonna bring this up, and we're gonna skip this ad and we're gonna go through it. Let's see if I can make this come on. It's there. I don't hear it, but we should hear it, but I don't hear it. So let's see what's going on. No, I don't hear it, but I should hear it. So let's go to another one and just see what's going on. Sometimes YouTube does that. You have to go to another one and then pull it up, and maybe it might play. Nope. So, Pastor Johnson, why is that not working? Why is that not playing? So let's leave that there and figure that out. So we'll go over here, and I'll pull up another little program I have. I'm going to skip that from now. And it tells me it should be working. But it could be the way I have this set up. I had to unplug this today, and when I unplugged it, maybe something didn't get plugged back up right. So let's go over here to the volume and all of that and see what's going on, okay? So we can see what's going on. Right over here, Roadcast. Oh, that's why. It's on mute, brothers and sisters. So that's why. It's always an answer to all of this stuff. So let's take it off of mute and let's go play it. All right, here we go.
Did you know that hundreds of years before Christmas was the most jolly festival in December, there was a week-long festival in ancient Rome dedicated to the god Saturn?
Now, I want to say this is the Ancient History Encyclopedia. However, brothers and sisters, they say that this came from ancient Rome. This actually came all the way back during the days of Babylon. Okay? Ancient Rome is who introduced it into the church and changed it to Christmas, or incorporated it into Christmas. And that's important for you to know. So when we hear this, a lot of people think that things came from ancient Rome. They think the Christmas tree came from ancient Rome. It was Babylon, Persia, the Greeks. Rome took it and mingled it and created one society, having one doctrine, and mingled those things together. That's what Rome did. So let's go back and look at this and hear. Again, this resource is the Ancient History Encyclopedia. Let's go ahead and tune back in.
Years before Christmas was the most jolly festival in December, there was a week-long festival in ancient Rome dedicated to the god Saturn. Hello and welcome to Ancient History Encyclopedia. My name is Kelly, and today we're going to be exploring the history of Saturnalia, the equally as festive predecessor of Christmas. Don't forget, the easiest way to support us is to give this video a like and subscribe to our channel so you don't miss out on any new uploads. Io Saturnalia. The Saturnalia was a week-long festival celebrated in ancient Rome between the 17th and the 23rd of December in honour of the god Saturn. Saturn, although a fairly mysterious figure in Roman mythology, was the god of agriculture and had a fairly prominent temple in the Roman Forum. Despite claims by Livy that says the festival began in the 5th century BCE, there is evidence that suggests a much older history. It began as a one-day festival, but by the late Republic, it had extended to cover an entire week. Saturnalia was a jolly and festive time, which consisted of eating, drinking, games, partying, and merrymaking for all. The people's usual lives came to a halt, with businesses closing, people given holidays, and the informal, colourful clothing known as synthesis being worn, rather than the usual formal toga. The cult statue of Saturn had his ankles tied by woolen bonds throughout the year, but these were loosened during the Saturnalia. The act of loosening the bonds of the god Saturn caused the deity to be associated with liberation, which was a prominent aspect of the Saturnalia. The social conventions and tight social structure of ancient Rome was not only relaxed, but partially reversed during this time of revelry. Although the slaves still had to make the meals, they were able to eat in the same room as their masters, often being served by their masters, and were able to do and say as they wished. The masters wore the felt hat of the freed slave, known as the pileus, and a Saturnalicius princeps, or leader of the Saturnalia, was chosen. This person, also known as the Lord of Misrule, was chosen from the lower members of the household and had the right to conduct light-hearted mayhem. The partying, drinking, and general merrymaking continued through day 2 of the Saturnalia, and on day 3 was the Feast of Opalia, a celebration of Ops, the wife of Saturn. Ops was an earth goddess and was the Roman deity of the harvest and fertility. Although Ops was celebrated in a festival in August at the end of the harvest season called the Opicon Siva, she was also celebrated on the 3rd day of the Saturnalia. The end of the Saturnalia was marked by the most important tradition of the festival, gift-giving. These were often small trinkets or jellied figs, but the most popular gifts were the small terracotta figures known as sigilla, which took the forms of deities, heroes like Hercules, or common and sometimes comical figures associated with the giver or the recipient. Candles were another very popular gift because the Saturnalia was associated with the winter solstice and the coming of the light through the birth of the sun god Sol Invictus on the 23rd of December. Candles not only represented the light of the god, but each individual's personal quest for truth and righteousness. The month of December was used to prepare for the week-long festivities, including purchasing the sigilla from the special markets known as the sigillaria, which gives its name to the end of the festival. People greeted each other with the customary Io Saturnalia, and at the end of the festival, the ankles of Saturn were tied up again until next year, and the social order was restored. The influence of Saturnalia on the Christian celebration of Christmas was direct, and includes the decoration of homes with garlands and lights, general merrymaking, feasting, and gift-giving. The holiday was so popular among the Romans that the early church couldn't stamp it out, and so they incorporated it into the Christian calendar, with Christ replacing Saturn and Sol Invictus in the celebrations. The Saturnalia was known as the jolliest of Roman festivals, and the poet Catullus described it as the best of times. So what aspects of Saturnalia would you incorporate into your Christmas celebrations? Let us know down in the comments below. Don't forget, if you enjoyed this video, give it a like and subscribe to our channel so you don't miss out on any new uploads. Io Saturnalia! This video was brought to you by Ancient History Encyclopedia. For more great articles and interactive content, head to our website via the link below. Ancient History Encyclopedia is a not-for-profit organisation. If you'd like to support our work, hit the card in the top corner of the screen or via the link below. Thank you all so much for watching, and we'll see you soon.
Okay, so let me get back out of that. So as you could see, they indicated that there were parts of Saturnalia incorporated into Christmas. It wasn't parts; it was a lot of it. And this celebration goes all the way back, brothers and sisters, for a long time. Connected to the days of Babylon. It really does. It goes back. Now, again, it has its origin of celebrating the sun, festivities, drinking, just a lot of stuff like that had nothing to do, as you and I know, with the birth of Christ at all, period. Nothing. So I want to go now back to the scriptures. I want to go back to say, let's go back over here to the scriptures and let's bring this up. So Nebuchadnezzar, whilst he tasted the wine, commanded to bring the golden and silver vessels which his father Nebuchadnezzar had taken out of the temple, which was in Jerusalem, that the king and princes, his wives and concubines, might drink therein. Then they bought the golden vessels that were taken out of the temple of the house of God, which was at Jerusalem, and the king and his princesses and his wives and his concubines drank to them. They drank wine and praised the gods of gold and of silver, of brass, of iron and wood, and of stone. In that same hour, now again, remember, when we get something from the scriptures, world history can confirm it, but it's not going to go into this part. In the same hour came forth fingers of a man's hand, and wrote over against the candlestick upon the plaster of the wall of the king's palace. And the king saw the part of the hand that wrote, and the king's countenance was changed, and his thoughts troubled him, so that his joints of his loins were loose, and his knees smote one against the other. And the king said, bring in the astrologers, the Chaldeans, the soothsayers. And the king spake and said to the wise men of Babylon, whosoever shall read this writing and show me the interpretation thereof shall be clothed with scarlet and with a chain of gold about his neck, and shall be the third ruler in the kingdom. The third ruler. Then came in all the king's wise men, but they could not read the writing, nor make known to the king the interpretation of. So you can't interpret something that you don't recognize the handwriting. Then was King Belshazzar greatly troubled, and his countenance was changing him, and his lords were astonished. Now the queen, by reason of the words of the king and his lords, came into the banquet house. And the queen spake and said, O king, live forever. Let not thy thoughts trouble thee, nor let thy countenance be changed. There is a man in the kingdom in whom is the spirit of the holy God. Just how they referred to it when they were trying to explain that the Lord deals with Daniel. And in the days of thy father, light and understanding and wisdom, like the wisdom of the gods, was found in him, whom the king Nebuchadnezzar thy father, the king, I say, thy father made master of the magicians, astrologers, Chaldeans, and soothsayers, for as much as an excellent spirit and knowledge and understanding, interpreting of dreams and showing of hard sentences, and dissolved of doubts, were found in the same Daniel, whom the king named Belshazzar. This name is different from Belshazzar. See, Belshazzar, but they called Daniel Belshazzar. Belshazzar, right here, Belshazzar. So two different names sound alike, but that's what the king named it. Now let Daniel, which is what his name was, be called, and he will show thee the interpretation. Then Daniel was brought in before the king, and the king spake and said, Daniel, art thou that Daniel which art of the children of the captivity of Judah, whom the king my father brought out of Jewry? Because remember, brothers and sisters, Nebuchadnezzar went in at the direction of the Lord, wiped out a lot of the Jews, and those that he didn't, he brought them into captivity. Daniel was among that group that they brought into Babylon under captivity. Then he goes on to say, and now the wise, verse 14, I have even heard of thee, that the spirit of the gods is in thee, and that light and understanding and excellent wisdom is found in thee. And now the wise men, the astrologers, have been brought in before me, that they should read this writing, and make known unto me the interpretation thereof. But they could not show the interpretation of the thing. And I have heard of thee, that thou canst make interpretations, and dissolve doubts. Now, if thou canst read the writing, and make known to me the interpretation thereof, thou shalt be clothed with scarlet, and have a chain of gold about thy neck, and thou shalt be the third ruler in the kingdom. Daniel answered and said before the king, let thy gifts be to thyself, and give thy rewards to another. Yet I will read the writing unto the king, and make known to him the interpretation. O thou king, the Most High God gave Nebuchadnezzar thy father a kingdom. Listen to how Daniel is talking to Belshazzar. God gave your father a kingdom, a majesty and glory and honor. And for the majesty that he gave him, all people, all nations and languages trembled and feared before him, whom he would slew, and whom he kept alive, and whom he would set up, whom he put down. So wherever he wanted to put him up, he put him up. And whoever he wanted to take down, he'd take him down. But when his heart was lifted up and his mind hardened in pride, he was disposed from his kingly throne, and they took his glory from him. Because y'all remember, Nebuchadnezzar was out there like a wild beast in the mine. And he was driven from the sons of men, and his heart was made like the beast. And his dwelling was with the wild asses. And they fed him with grass like oxen, and his body was wet with the dew of heaven, till he knew that the Most High God ruled in the kingdom of men, and that he appointed over it whomsoever he will. So he's letting them know, listen, brother, this is what happened to your daddy. And your daddy had to be humbled. The Lord humbled him, made him lose his mind, put him out there like he was a wild animal eating grass, until he realized who put him in place. It was the God of Israel. Because the God of Israel puts up kings and takes down kings. And then he goes on to say, and thou his son, O Belshazzar, has not humbled thine heart. You have not humbled your heart, brother. Though thou knewest all this, you knew what happened to your father. You knew that he humbled himself and he came back and he recognized the God of Israel. But you knew all this. But look at verse 23. But hast lifted up thyself against the Lord of heaven, and they have brought the vessels of his house before thee. They went over and got the vessels that belonged to the God of Israel, and they brought them before you. And thou and thy lords, thy wives, thy concubines have drunk wine in them, and thou hast praised the gods of silver and gold, of brass, iron, wood, stone, which see not, nor hear, nor know, and the God in whose hand thy breath is, and whose are all thy ways, hast thou not glorified. Then was the part of the hand sent from him, and this writing was written. So in other words, this part of the hand was sent by the God of Israel. And this is the writing that was written. And this is what it says. And this is the writing that was written many, many Tekel upharsin. This is the interpretation of the thing. Many, God has numbered thy kingdom, and it is finished. Tekel, you've been weighed in the balance, and you are wanted. Perez, thy kingdom is divided, and your kingdom is going to be given to the Medes and the Persians. Now, Daniel is giving him what's going to happen. Babylon is going to be given to the Medes and the Persians. Then commanded Belshazzar, and they clothed Daniel with scarlet, put a chain of gold about his neck, and made a proclamation concerning him that he should be the third ruler in the kingdom. Now look at verse 30. In that night was Belshazzar, the king of the Chaldeans, slain, and Darius the Mede took the kingdom, being 62 years old. Now, we covered that last night. I wanted tonight to bring out Saturnalia and the events that take place. When they say this was brought in by Rome, Rome took everything to a different level. They took Christianity to a different level. I mean, not for the good either. They took pagan worship to a different level. Why? Because they're the fourth beast. And the fourth beast would be dreadful and terrible. Daniel was told that. This fourth beast is nothing to play with. The fourth beast will take things and magnify it to the 10th power. So I want to go back and find other information on the history of Saturnalia, okay? And then I'm going to tie that in, because I'm tying everything in tonight, brothers and sisters, with the authenticity of the scriptures and also paganism. All right. Let me see here. All right. I want to get the one. I don't want to just grab anybody's video. I want to grab one that's either like from the History Channel or some sort of encyclopedia that's on YouTube that could really shed some more information, okay? So I'm being very, very picky on which information that I provide dealing with Saturnalia, okay? So I'm just scrolling down looking for the one that I feel is, not just somebody. I want to get a reputable resource or a reference is what I want to do. Because there's some in here, but I want to get one that really either came from a news agency like we did the other day, or it's going to come from an encyclopedia or from History Channel. I want to grab one from there. Here's one I'm going to play, and it's dealing with the history of Christmas. So let's grab that one and play it, okay? This is from the History Channel, by the way.
We've all heard the biblical origins of Christmas, but societies have been celebrating light and birth in the darkest days of winter centuries before Jesus walked the earth. In the Norse country, this winter celebration was known as Yule. Around December 21st, the winter solstice, fathers and sons dragged evergreens indoors as reminders of life and set logs on fire as a promise of good fortune. Ancient Rome had its own December festivals. 1 week before the winter solstice, Romans began celebrating Saturnalia, an orgy of food and drink in honor of Saturn, the god of agriculture. Some Romans, particularly soldiers and government officials, also worshipped Mithra, the sun god. It is believed that to this small but powerful sect, the birthday of Mithra, December 25th, was the holiest day of the year. By the 1st century AD, pagan traditions were being challenged as Christianity took hold throughout the empire. But Christ's birth date remained a mystery, since the Bible doesn't mention exactly when he was born. Since pagan Rome already celebrated the birth of Mithra on December 25th, it is theorized the church adopted the date as the birth of the Christ child. In the 4th century, the church made it official, declaring December 25th as the feast day of the Nativity. The church knew it could not outlaw the pagan traditions of Christmas, so it came to accept them. The evergreens traditionally brought indoors were decorated with apples, symbolizing the Garden of Eden. These apples would eventually become Christmas ornaments. The story of Santa Claus also begins in the 4th century with the death of Nicholas, a beloved Turkish bishop. The anniversary of his death became known as St. Nicholas Day. On December 6th, good children woke to gifts from the kindly saint. Bad children sulked away with nothing. In Holland, he was known as Sinterklaas. 1,500 years later in America, a seminary professor named Clement Clark Moore reimagined the legend of St. Nicholas. In 1822, Moore wrote a poem called The Night Before Christmas about a good-natured saint named Santa Claus, who was pulled by a group of reindeer and came down the chimney on Christmas Eve. Like St. Nicholas, Santa Claus spread good cheer and gave gifts to children. Less clear was exactly what this Santa Claus looked like. Then in 1863, Thomas Nast, a cartoonist for Harper's Weekly, settled the matter once and for all with his version of the Christmas saint. Nast's Santa was rotund and jolly, with a full white beard and a sack full of toys. An American icon was born.
Okay, so
I
that's
discovered
some
the 8
history
immortal
there, that they have, and there's a little bit more. I'm going to bring out some more on this Saturnalia, but you know they say it came from Rome. It did come from pagan Rome. However, Rome was a pagan society that adopted its practices from the nations that were already on the earth. From instance, like Babylon to the Persians, to the Persians to the Greeks, and to the Greeks to the Romans. And that's the order, because there's only 4 beasts on the earth. Now, in the video, they said that Rome was practicing worshiping the sun. Brothers and sisters, the worshiping of the sun, again, the historians are only taking it back to Rome. It goes before Rome, okay? It goes way before Rome. And I'm going to show that to you because I want to read that to you so we can go into scriptures and look at it. And then we're going to come back to Daniel. Just 1 second. I'm going to pull up that scripture. And I like the way we kind of have this now. Here we go. So we're going to go to Ezra, the book of Ezra. And I think we're going to go to the 6th chapter. I should have put down the 6th chapter, but I'm sorry. Let me go over here and make sure it's Ezra, the 6th chapter. It's actually Ezra, the 8th chapter. But I want to be able to get to it quick. So I'll scroll through it this way. Ezra, the 8th chapter. So you can kind of get the tone of where this is going at. Ezra, the 8th. It's not actually Ezra, it's Ezekiel. I got the wrong one here. Ezekiel, the 8th chapter. Alrighty. Here we go. Okay. And it came to pass in the 6th year, in the 6th month, in the 5th day of the month, as I sat in mine house, and the elders of Judah sat before me, that the hand of the Lord God fell there upon me. This is Ezekiel. Then I beheld, and lo, a likeness as the appearance of fire, from the appearance of his loins even downward, fire, and from his loins upward as the appearance of brightness, as the color of amber. And he put forth the form of an hand, and took me by a lock of mine head, and the Spirit lifted me up between the earth and the heaven, and brought me in the visions of God to Jerusalem. So what he's doing is he's letting Daniel see what he sees. What the Most High wanted, not Daniel, Ezekiel, to see what he sees from his perspective. And I think that is important that Ezekiel see it that way. I want to show you how things look to me in my visions. I want to skip down because he keeps taking Daniel through all of these doors, and he's showing him all of these abominations. But here's one I want to show you. And he said unto me, because as he's taking him through these different places, he keeps showing him greater abominations. He says, well, turn this way. Let me show you even greater. So let's pick it up in verse 13. And he said unto me, turn ye yet again, and thou shalt see greater abominations that they do. Then he brought me to the door of the gate of the Lord's house, which was toward the north, and behold, there sat women weeping for Tammuz. This is Israel. Then he said unto me, how hast thou seen this, O son of man? Turn ye yet again, and thou shalt see greater abominations than these. Because he keeps showing him more and more and more and more. Listen to this. And he brought me into the inner court of the Lord's house. And behold, at the door of the temple of the Lord, between the porch and the altar, were about 25 men, check this out, with their backs toward the temple of the Lord, and their faces toward the east, and they worshiped the sun. So when we looked over there and they said Rome was Mithrash and they were celebrating the sun, and this is what pagan Rome did. Rome, this goes back to the days at the beginning of times. This thing goes all the way back to the Hamites. This goes all the way back to Babylon, brothers and sisters, all carried on by Persia, carried on by Greeks, and perfected by Rome to the point that they brought it into Christianity. That's what they did. So when we go back over here and read Daniel, that Daniel was having this big party, right? This big party. And this is what they were doing. They were celebrating this, Rome called it Saturnalia, but it's still the same old feast that they were doing at that particular period of time. There's only one big feast that they always had when they are now bringing and having this drinking, wine and praising gods of gold and silver, brass and iron, wood and stone. And you got all of these princesses and wives and concubines might drink therein. You know what happens when you're having a party like that and you got women drinking too. So this is why they say the history of Saturnalia, that it was a bunch of drinking and orgies and all like that, brothers and sisters. This goes back before Rome. Before Rome. Now, here's what we're going to do now, because we read here, and that's why I took you to Ezekiel to say they've been celebrating the sun. The Lord already showed this to Ezekiel. But listen to this. In that night was Belshazzar, the king of the Chaldeans, slain. Darius the Mede took the kingdom, being about 62 years old. Now we're going to look at some history. Because remember, we just read that Darius the Mede took the kingdom while they was having that party. And that when we just read, it says, in that night, he was killed. So let's go read a little history, brothers and sisters, so we can kind of get a little bit of idea that the Bible can be confirmed by world history. That's why you're getting 2 lessons tonight to show you paganism and where it came from and how long it's been around. And we looked where they said Christmas came from Saturnalia. And we also are showing you that it goes way back before Rome. But here's what else I want to show you. Because if the Bible, that we can confirm through prophecy that this actually took place, let's go read it in world history to see how world history describes how the Medes took Babylon. Let's go read it in world history, because that's the best way to do it. We're just going to see if the world history brings up some of this. So I'm over here, and this is entitled The Capture of Babylon. This is from Articles of Ancient History. Okay, that's what this is. Articles of Ancient History. So what I want to do is I'm going to skip all the way down to something that I think is important, that we can glean some information from. So let me blow this up a little bit so you can see the print real good, okay? Let's do that. So let's bring this over and let's look at this. Hereupon, the Persians who had been left for the purpose at Babylon by the riverside entered the stream. Now let me give you some history. Babylon was surrounded by a great big wall. This is why they were able to stay powerful for so long. It was hard to penetrate that very thick wall that surrounded the city. Now you can read about that in history. I won't have time to do that tonight, but when you just read about Babylon and the fortitude of Babylon, it was able to be successful for so many years because it had a thick wall. But there was a river that they made a little tunnel through the wall where the river and water could run through, and this is how the city got its water. So let's read a little bit here. Hereupon the Persians who had been left for the purpose at Babylon by the riverside entered the stream, which had now sunk so as to reach about midway up a man's thigh. Let me make this a little bit bigger. Y'all know me, I like to make it where everybody could see as I'm reading. All right, that's a little bit better. And I'm going to stretch it out a little bit. Is that all right? So we can kind of get what's happening here. There we go. I don't know if I'm getting everything in, but we're going to try to. There we go. Let's make this. All right. Now let's make it. There we go. I like it now. Now I'm going to make this a little bit bigger, so just bear with me. This is how we do it in class. We make it where we could see everything, okay? All right. There we go. A little bit, one more time. Okay. Now, let's go back and read this. So it says, hereupon the Persians, who had been left at the purpose at Babylon by the riverside, entered the stream. Now they are getting ready to attack. This is how Babylon, again, let me go back up here and show you. This is how Babylon was captured, okay? This is the history of that. Now, again, we read the scriptures and we just read about the handwriting on the wall, and that night Darius took the city. But let's see how history describes that story. Hereupon the Persians who had been left for the purpose at Babylon by the riverside entered the stream, which now had sunk so as to reach about midway up a man's thigh, and thus got into the town. Had the Babylonians been apprised of what Cyrus was about to do, or had they noticed their danger, they would never have allowed the Persians to enter the city, but would have destroyed them utterly, for they would have made fast all the street gates which gave access to the rivers. In other words, they would have shut those gates that gave access to that river, and mounting upon the walls along both sides of the stream, would so have caught the enemy as it were in a trap. So in other words, they would have, as they walked under the tunnel, they would have shut that gate, and then before they came to the other side, through that wall, because the walls were thick, brothers and sisters, I mean almost like feet, tens of feet thick, and they would have shut the gate on the other side, and they would have got caught in between. But as it was, the Persians came up by them surprise, and so took the city. Owing to the vast size of the place, the inhabitants of the central parts, as the residents at Babylon declared, long after the outer portions of the town were taken, knew nothing of what had chanced. But, check this out, as they were engaged in a festival, continued dancing and reveling until they learned about the capture. Too late. You see this here? This is how history describes it. But again, and such then were the circumstance of the first taking of Babylon. This is how Babylon was taken. They were engaged in a festival, continued dancing and reveling until they learned about the capture. Let's go back and read the scriptures. And it says, this is how the scriptures put it. Let's go back up here. Belshazzar the king made a great feast to 1,000 of his lords, and drank wine before thousands. Belshazzar, whilst he tasted the wine, commanded to bring the golden and silver vessels which his father Nebuchadnezzar had taken out of the temple which was in Jerusalem, that the king and his princes and his wives and his concubines might drink therein. And they brought those golden vessels that were taken out of the temple of the house of God, which is at Jerusalem, and the king and his princes and his wives and concubines drank in them. They drink wine and praise the gods of gold. They're having a festival. They're having just a good old drinking, reveling time, as the encyclopedia World History describes it. And they said, go down there and get those vessels that Nebuchadnezzar took from Israel out of the temple and put them in a vault. Go get those, bring them up. See, the Lord had to allow the transition of power take place somehow. All we know is the account in which the scriptures through Daniel lays it out. So that same hour, finger of a man's hand came, it wrote on the wall, Daniel interpreted that dream, and guess what? He says, man, you've been weighed in the balances. You've been wanting, and your kingdom is going to be taken tonight. So that's why the scripture says, listen here, and in that night, Belshazzar, the king of the Chaldeans, slain. So you notice there's no battle, there's no war, there's no anything. Because what the transfer has to take place. Because Nebuchadnezzar was given the dream that the transfer of power was going to take place. Daniel saw the dream that the transfer of power was going to take place. Daniel saw 4 beasts, the lion, the bear, which is the Medes and the Persians, that there's going to be a transfer of power. So when we go to the encyclopedia, we only read what we read, brothers and sisters, but it's confirming the scriptures. That's exactly what it's doing. And how am I bringing the paganism part into this? This is Saturnalia. This is the same feast that they've been doing for a long time. Same feast. Babylon's been doing it. They were engaged in a festival, continued dancing and reveling. This is how history describes it. They don't mention Daniel. History's not going to mention Daniel. History's not going to mention that there was handwriting on the wall. They're not going to mention the fact that Daniel interpreted the handwriting on the wall and the Lord said, listen, your kingdom is about to be taken, brother. They don't mention that because world history only deals with history without dealing with the Bible. However, that history can be confirmed. The Bible is confirmed by that world history. And that Saturnalia, that Christmas tree, all of that drink, it goes all the way back, brothers and sisters. It goes all the way back to the days of Babylon. It's nothing new. It's nothing new. The birth and all of that goes back to Nimrod. Goes all the way back. So when we look at this, worshiping the sun, that's why we read Ezekiel, the 8th chapter. The people of Israel had their backs to the wall, facing the sun. Let's go back and read that. I want to go over here in the scriptures and read that again. Because see, this is nothing, this is something in the book of Ezra. I had Ezra, but it's Ezekiel. There we go. So again, he grabs Ezekiel by a lock and takes him around and shows Ezekiel things from his perspective, so he could see the abominations of Israel. He wanted him to see. He says, have you seen the Son of Man? Yet an even greater abomination than these. Look how many times he's taken him around. Have you seen what the ancients of the house of Israel do in the dark? Do you see what these people are doing in the dark, Ezekiel? Every man in the chambers of his imagination and in the chambers of his imagery. For they said, the Lord seeth us not. The Lord hath forsaken the earth. See, this is what people do today. So when we talk about worshiping the sun, this goes way back to the Lord showing it to Ezekiel. He said unto me, turn yet again. I'm going to show you greater abominations that they do. Then he brought me to the door of the gate of the Lord's house. And here's women weeping for Tammuz. He said, listen to this. There's even yet a greater abomination than these. He takes them to the inner court of the Lord's house at the temple of the door of the temple of the Lord. And here's 25 men. Their backs are toward the temple of the Lord, and they are worshiping the sun. This stuff goes way back, way back. The winter solstice and worship and sun, they named it, they added to it. Brothers and sisters, it's the same thing. But we confirmed it through world history. We confirmed that this drinking, having all of these women, this riotous night, all of this reveling Belshazzar was doing, he was doing this mess right here, worshiping the sun. And he got caught. Because when he went in to grab the vessels from the house, from the vault that belonged to the house of God, although the Lord allowed Nebuchadnezzar to do it, don't touch those vessels. You want to do your thing, but don't bother these vessels. See, this is why it's dangerous when you start bringing a Christmas tree inside of the church and say, this is the birth of Christ, and here's the mistletoe, and here's the gift given. And then you got the apologetic community who says, well, you know, it's not something I believe in. I don't worship it. I do it. It's just something that's a tradition. It's the tradition of satanic worship. Whether you don't acknowledge it and you do it and you say, but I'm not worshiping the devil. You are. You're worshiping Satan. When you bring in that Christmas tree and you turn your face toward the east and worship the sun, that is the winter solstice. That is sun worshiping. That's worshiping the sun, S-U-N, and it was Constantine that made it S-O-N, but it's the same thing, brothers and sisters. You can sweeten it up. You can religion it up. You can do whatever you want to. It's not going to change. It's not the birth of Christ. It has nothing to do with the birth of Christ. It's all paganism. And again, when we read world history, I love it. I love the way they put it. Is that, where were we at? We were reading that. How all they were doing was sitting there and just waiting. They were doing their thing. They were sitting there doing their thing, and all of a sudden, that night, it was all taken. That night. And they were celebrating their feast. So this is why this stuff is important. This is why this is good, brothers and sisters, is to get this information and know where it comes from. Shout out to Brother Julius. Shout out to Brother Euro, Kevin Yates. Brother Azza Fingers, how you doing, my brother? Shout out to all of y'all. So I wanted to bring in that world history to confirm the Bible, but yet at the same time, let you see what is taking place. Let me see if I can go back there to that story. I want to go back there. I thought that was a very good part to be at when we read that. Well, I lost it, but we pulled it out earlier. But here we go. Here we go. I want to just pull that up one more time. They were engaged in a festival, continued dancing and reveling. See, it's too late. They were already doing it. This is how they came in, brothers and sisters. This is how they took Babylon down. This is the capture of Babylon under Belshazzar, who was clowning with his wives and his concubines during their festival, Saturnalia. Rome called it Saturnalia because they brought in other deities in worshiping the sun. So it's the same thing. They were sitting there having their festival, and again, it's amazing that you know, world history don't tell you what type of festival it is. You got to go into other places to look at the history of Saturnalia, the fact that it was drinking and women, and you know what it was. It's Saturnalia, continued dancing and reveling. But then when you go to the scriptures, it tells you right there. These people were he was sitting there just drinking with his wives, concubines. Just look at this. And I want you to put yourself in the story, brothers and sisters. Put yourself in the story. This guy, the last thing he was thinking about, he's got all of this wine. He's got princesses, wives, concubines, and they just drinking. And they said, let's go get the golden vessels from the house of God. You don't think the Lord is going to deal with that? Listen, do you think that the Lord is going to let all of these congregations continue to bring in that Christmas tree on December the 25th, right inside the congregation, and he's not going to deal with that? Oh, yeah. When he returns in his fury, he's going to deal with that. After the tribulation, when the Lord returns, he's going to deal with all of that madness, brothers and sisters. Oh, yeah, he's going to deal with it. He's going to deal with it. And that's why he told Ezekiel, see all of this? I enjoyed being with you all tonight. That's our lesson tonight. Thank you for tuning in. We'll be back tomorrow night. Just rolling like this. If you have a question, you can put a Q in front of the question in the chat room. I'll take a few minutes to address them. If you have one, you can put a Q in front of your question. What we did tonight, in summary, we took the book of Daniel. We showed you the pagan practices that they were doing and connected it to practices that was carried on by Rome, and showed you that the Saturnalia, where they were drinking and had all the women there, we went right back into Daniel and showed you the same story. And that night, after the handwriting on the wall, we showed you that the Lord says, and that night Not even the next day, that night. We took you to the encyclopedia to show you the events as world history's account of how the kingdom was taken. And what they did was the water lord that came in, they were having a festival. They were too drunk. Their minds, the last thing they thought that somebody was going to come in there. And Belshazzar lost the kingdom without any battle, brothers and sisters. Even world history says there was no battle because they planned it perfectly. Let's go there when they're worshiping the sun, that Saturnalia, when they have all that drinking and they got all their women and they just having a good time. Let's go get them then. And they did. That's what they did. And Belshazzar, life, said, you've been weighed in the balances, brother. You've been wanting, and you're going to lose your kingdom. And I love the way Daniel says in his account, and that night, not tomorrow, not a month later, that night. And I love how history says, well, they were having one of their festivals. You see how history and the Bible, history will confirm prophecy the way the Lord gave it to Daniel. And history will come back and confirm what actually took place. This is why we have a very great, authentic book, brothers and sisters. Hold on to it. Cherish that book. From Genesis to Revelation. Cherish that book. That is your history. That is your understanding. Those are the words that in that book that will get you eternal life. Don't let anybody tell you that their Bible's not real. Don't anybody tell you, well, you know, parts was written by Shakespeare. You know, nobody knows who Isaiah or Daniel really is. Don't let nobody take you down that road. Don't do it. Don't do it. There is a way, and I may do it tomorrow night. I'm going to show you the 70 weeks of Daniel. We're going to go into history again, and we're going to show you how you calculate the year Christ was born. Not the date, not the month, not the day, but we can calculate by Daniel's prophecy the year in which Christ was born. We're going to do that tomorrow night. Hit that like button, hit that share button. We're going to take you straight through history and show you by just taking Daniel and what he wrote and doing some simple calculations. It will take you to the year Christ was born. The year, not the date. And remember, the scriptures doesn't tell us. The scripture doesn't tell us the year that he was born. However, we're going to be able to figure it out. I'm going to show you. I'm going to show you the year Jesus was born. I'm going to show you by taking prophecy, doing a couple of connections, and getting a couple of dates from world history. And I'm going to show you the year that Christ was born. It's going to be a great exercise. Tune in tomorrow night. We're going to have a great time with that. You might want to bring your paper, your pencil. We're going to do some adding, some subtracting. We're going to be looking in the encyclopedia, and we're going to add some of Daniel's 70 weeks, and you're going to see the year Jesus was born. That's all we're going to get is the year. And again, the Bible doesn't tell you, but remember, unto Israel is the oracles given. See, we, because this thing was given to us, we know how to calculate these things. We can figure certain things we see that nobody else will see. But we're going to do it tomorrow night. So tune in tomorrow night, and we're going to get some great information, brothers and sisters, okay? So thank y'all for tuning in. I did not see Somebody says, class in session. Let me post what they said. Class in session says, the interesting thing about the Bible is that archaeologists use it to find archaeological sites. They do. They used the Bible and found Sargon's mask in Sennacherib's palace. I didn't say that word right. I know I tore it up. I know I tore that word up. And the Epic of Gilgamesh. Yes. That's a known fact that they would use the Bible and locations that the Bible give, and then they would go find those artifacts. That's what the archaeological people do. They go out and dig and they look for it and they say, bam, there it is right there. So they use the Bible to do that. Thank you very much for classes in session. Come back and join us tomorrow night. We're going to be showing you how to determine the birth year of Christ by simply reading the prophets and connecting some facts with world history. We're going to do some calculations and you will see the year Christ was born, okay? And you will find out it's not according to what man says, and then things will make sense. So that's going to be tomorrow night. Hit the like button, the share button, and more importantly, that notification bell, okay? So look for it somewhere around 8:30, 8:45-ish when this lesson starts. Everything will be in order. You're going to have a great time. We're going to get right into it right away. So shout out to Brother Julius, Brother Mark P. I think I saw Queen Cleo. If there's any other moderators that we have in our chat room, Brother Mike Spears, shout out to you. Brother Kevin Yates. I'm not going to call all the names, but just peace and blessings to all of you all. As I want to let you know, I do appreciate you coming to class and stopping in. Here's some information on our apps, our phone apps. This is one from Bethel. I'm going to show you that one first. And then the second one would be from the IOG app. The one on IOG app, you can go there and get any lesson that has been taught by subject, title, or teacher and get it. You can get it on demand. There is a small monthly subscription fee to that. Get it out. Check it out. The one for Bethel, it only has 4 lessons on demand, but it's 4 very important lessons. I think one is eating clean, the history of Christmas. I can't think of what else. But more importantly, if you're anywhere in our locality, this app, you will get push notifications once you download it. And if you would like to donate, you can donate through the phone app. That's one of the ways. We'll talk about other ways at some other time, but that's just one of the ways that you can do it. And again, thank all of you for tuning in tonight. So that being said, thank you, Brother Mark P. He says, hit the like button. Peace and blessings. We'll see you tomorrow night. Hit that notification bell. Good lesson tomorrow night. The birth of Christ. According to the prophets, the birth year of Christ, according to the prophets, confirmed by world history. Tomorrow night. God bless you. Thank you for tuning in.